Alright people, this is Algebra section 6, Rearranging. In this video I'll go over the section, I'll then go through the worksheet and finally answer the questions that are on the worksheet. The description box below gives a link to my Instagram page. Here you can find images of the worksheet as well as the answers. Right, the most common thing you will do in secondary school and college maths is solve equations. Like there's an X somewhere, you need to find out what it is. Now, equations can be right nasty sometimes, like there's a bunch of terms, there's some squares over here, there's a root over there, and these fractions just keep cropping up all over the place. So often you'll look at an equation and go, nah mate, I ain't answering that. This is the bit where rearranging comes in handy. There are a set number of steps that can take you from a god-awful equation to something that looks half decent and is probably easy to solve. In this section, we'll go through those rearranging steps. Right then, this is the worksheet for Algebra section 6, Rearranging. As I said in the introduction, often in maths, there's a letter in an equation and we need to find out what it is. This is called solving an equation. For example, we might be given the following equation. 2a minus 3 in brackets divided by 7 equals 3. And we're told to solve it, i.e. find A. Now, in this form, A is quite difficult to find. However, if the equation looked something like this, A would be much simpler to find, as it has been made the subject of the equation, i.e. A is on one side of the equal sign and everything else is on the other side. So to find A, we do 3 times 7, which is 21, plus 3, which is 24, divided by 12, which is 2. So A equals 2. The difference between these two equations is that this one has been rearranged to make A the subject. I hope this shows how being able to rearrange an equation is crucial in solving them. I've listed 7 steps here that you probably should learn in order to be able to rearrange equations. Now, not every equation will need every one of these steps, but you will need every one of these steps somewhere along the way. Make sure to learn these, but more importantly, make sure you practice them. Literally, the more questions you do in maths, the less you actually need to remember. So I don't actually remember any of this. I just know off the top of my head how to rearrange an equation. It's just become natural because I've practiced it so many times, and that's the same. So learn it for now, practice it, and then eventually you don't even have to remember this. Let's look at some of these steps in practice through some examples. Before we get into these examples, I just want to remind you of one thing that you've probably heard in school and what people bang on about, but it's quite important. So equations are like mirrors. What you do to one side of the equation, you must also do to the other side. So for instance, if you're looking in a mirror and you put a hat on, you in the mirror also puts a hat on. It's the same with equations. What you do to one side, you have to do to the other. Okay, just remember that. Right, let's look at the first example. So we have 3a equals 3. If we look at our steps over here, we can see that we're actually at step 6 already. We have an equation that's of the form ax to the n equals b. So here, a is actually 3, x is a, n, we can't see it, but it's 1, it's hidden, and b is 3. So what does it say? For step 7, time for finishing touches, you might need to divide, simplify or square root. So it just seems that we need to divide here. That's how we get rid of this 3 and we just get a on its own. If we divide this side by 3, it means we have to divide that side by 3. If we divide this side by 3, well 3 divided by 3 is just 1, so we get a on its own, and then this side will have 3 divided by 3. So let's do that. So we have a equals 3 over 3, which we can simplify, and therefore we get a equals 1. So we have solved this equation. We have found out that a equals 1, and we have done it through a few steps of rearranging. We have divided and we've also simplified. Let's look at the second example, which is this one here. So 4a plus 6 is equal to 12 minus 2a. Looking at our steps for rearranging, we don't have to do anything with square roots. We don't have to do anything with fractions. We've got no brackets. Therefore, the step that we have that we need to do is the subject, i.e. we need to take all terms that involve an a to one side of the equation. We have a 4a on this side and we have a minus 2a on this side. Let's try and get all a terms on this left-hand side. So we need to bring this minus 2a across over here. Now, there are two ways to remember how to do this. The first way is remembering this mirror rule. What happens on this side must also happen on that side. So to get rid of minus 2a on this side, we'd have to add 2a. Now, what you do to this side, you have to do to that side. So if we add 2a here, we have to add 2a on that side. By adding 2a on this side, it becomes minus 2a plus 2a, which is 0. And then on this side, we get 4a plus 2a, which is 6a. Another way to remember it, and something that I use, is I think of this as floating over here, coming to this side, and as it comes over, it changes sign. So this lifts up, it was a minus 2a, it comes across the equal sign, it becomes a plus 2a and plonks down here. That's the way I remember it, but I did start off always remembering it the other way, which is what you do to that side, you have to do to this side. So it's whatever you prefer. Let's go ahead and sort out the subject step then. So here, we've added 2a to both sides. Therefore, we get 4a plus 2a plus 6 is equal to 12. The next step is the other step. So every term that doesn't involve an a needs to go on the right-hand side of the equation. For instance, here we've got a plus 6 and we need to put it over here. Again, to get this plus 6 over here, we could minus 6 from this side, and what we do to this side, we have to do to that side. So we have to minus 6 from this side, or you can think of it as this 6 coming up, floating above. As it passes the equal sign, it changes sign, and it plonks down here and becomes a minus 6. So there we are. We have 4a plus 2a is equal to 12 minus 6. Now the next step is to simplify, and we need to simplify so that we're in this form. Ax to the n equals b. And there we have it. The simplified version, 6a is equal to 6. Now we know this next steps because we've already done an example that looks like this. We need to get the 6 that is times in by the a to the other side, i.e. this 6 needs to disappear, but what we do on this side, we have to do to that side. So to get rid of this 6, we divide by 6, so it becomes 1. Because we've divided this side by 6, we also need to divide this side by 6. So there's the divide step. And a finishing touch, we need to simplify. Therefore, we get a equals 1. Right, third example, we're getting a bit more complicated here. Now, we don't have any square roots to deal with and we don't have any fractions, but we do have some brackets. So we need to start with the third step of our rearranging rules, which is sorting out the brackets. So we need to expand this bracket here as well as this bracket here. I've created a video on expanding brackets. Therefore, if you don't quite know what to do with these, I'd probably suggest going to check that out. I'm going to assume that you do know how to do this, and therefore I'm going to include this bit here which shows those expanded brackets. So now we have 5a squared plus 50 is equal to 25a squared minus 10. Now we've done the brackets, the next bit is the subject step. So we need to make sure that all terms containing the subject are on one side. We've got a 5a squared on this side and we've got a 25a squared on this side. Therefore, this 25a squared needs to come to this side. And here's how we've done it. We've subtracted 25a squared from both sides, because remember, what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. I'll keep banging on about this, but it's helpful. You won't forget me banging on about it. So now we have 5a squared minus 25a squared plus 50 equals minus 10. The next step is to get all other terms, i.e. all terms not containing the subject, over to the right hand side. So this 50 needs to go over here. So there we go. 5a squared minus 25a squared is equal to minus 10 minus 50. Now we just simplify to give the following. Minus 20a squared is equal to minus 60. As I said before, you know the next step, we need to do some dividing. We need to get this a squared on its own. Therefore, we need to divide by minus 20 so that this side just becomes a squared. But what we do to this side, we have to do to this side. So here we go. A squared is equal to minus 60 divided by minus 20. Now remember, a minus divided by a minus becomes a plus. Therefore, we can simplify to get a squared equal to 3. Now, you might be unfortunate enough to end with an a squared. When this happens, it's alright. All you have to do is make sure you square root. So, again, what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. To get rid of this square sign, the opposite is to square root it. Therefore, we get the following. A is equal to the square root of 3. Final example now, we have the square root of 3a minus 12 divided by 2b minus 1 equal to minus 3b. So looking at our steps for rearranging, we hit the first step. We need to sort out this square root. Like I said in this example, squaring and square root are like opposite operations. If you do them both together, they cancel each other out. Therefore, to get rid of this square root, what we need to do is square it. So here we go. We've raised both sides to the power of 2, i.e. we've squared them. Therefore, we can get rid of this square root here, but this side is now squared. The next step on rearranging is sorting out fractions. We need to get rid of this guy. So what's happening here is 3a minus 12 is being divided by 2b minus 1. If we don't want it to be divided by 2b minus 1, what do we need to do? Well, we need to times by 2b minus 1, i.e. if you had 2b minus 1 up here and 2b minus 1 down there, they cancel out. That might seem a little bit complicated to you, so one other way of remembering it is I've got this thing down here, and what I do is I take it, I grab it and pull it all the way up here. It used to be a divide, but as it crosses the equal sign, it becomes a times. A bit like when I did the plus and minus, like this 50 here. I dragged it up here, it was plus 50, it crosses the equal sign, it becomes minus 50 and it plonks down here. Same with fractions. 2b minus 1. It was a divide until it passes the equal sign, comes to this side and becomes a times. We either multiply both sides by 2b minus 1 and therefore this cancels out, or you can think of it as dragging this expression over here and it changing from a divide to a times. And this is what we get. We get 3a minus 12 is equal to minus 3b all squared times by that 2b minus 1. Right, we've sorted out the fractions. The next step is brackets. With brackets, I like to sort them out one at a time usually. Therefore, let's sort out this guy first. So we have 3a minus 12 is equal to 9b squared times by bracketed 2b minus 1. Notice how this minus sign's disappeared because we've squared, i.e. we've done minus times by a minus, which becomes a plus. And the second bracket, here we've expanded the bracket, i.e. we've times the terms in here by this term on the outside. It just so happens that our subject is A and it is on the right hand side. Therefore, we can skip the subject step and go straight to the other step, which is getting all other terms on the right hand side of the equation. There we go. That 12 has jumped over the equal sign, it's changed its sign and it's plonked down there to be plus 12. Now we've just got this pesky 3 here, we need to get rid of that. We all know what to do. You need to divide by 3 on this side, and what you do to that side, you have to do to this side. So we divide by 3. So you get A is equal to 18b cubed minus 9b squared plus 12 all divided by 3. Now you can simplify that a little bit further to get A is equal to 6b cubed minus 3b squared plus 4. Like I said a bit before, the rules for rearranging, it's good to learn them, but it's practice that really solidifies them in your mind. Like, you will nail this by just practicing. Therefore, I think this is a good stage to pause the video, try out these questions yourself, and then come back to the video and you can check your answers as well as your workings to make sure your thinking was right and that you're getting to what you need to get to. Cool.